Hello friends, welcome back to Sunday School. Just to be extra safe and careful for all of us who might be not feeling well or struggling with sickness, we are going to do another virtual lesson this week. For the last several weeks, and all the way up until we start the season of Lent, we are going to learn about a new parable of Jesus. Some of you may be wondering, what is a parable? A parable is a story that Jesus would tell to help us to learn a little bit more about Jesus, God, and the kingdom of heaven, and how we can act into the kingdom of heaven on earth. So a long time ago, when Jesus lived and did such wonderful things and incredible acts, his disciples would ask him so many questions. And instead of answering them with a direct answer, Jesus would tell them a story. In this story, the disciples would be able to discern for themselves what they thought the answer would be. This week, we are going to focus on the question the disciples asked: what is the kingdom of heaven like? One day when the disciples asked Jesus that question, Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like when a sower is someone who plants seeds. So when someone who plants seeds goes out and sows, which means they go out and plant seeds in the ground. To help us tell our story today, we are going to use a parable box. We used one last week when we talked about the mustard seed. This is the same kind of box, but it has a different parable inside of it. I can kind of hear some of the pieces within, but it's a different story. And yes, it is about a seed, but you may be wondering from last week, how can my faith grow like a mustard seed? Well, this story might be able to also help answer that question, as well as answering the question, what is the kingdom of God like? So let's go and open the box. So to tell our story, first we need this brown cloth. This will be our underlay that helps us navigate the story. So here we have the sower. And you see their little sack right there? This has all the seeds inside of it. So this person was called a sower, and they would take seeds from their bag and throw it onto the ground. So the sower begins to walk along the path, throwing seeds all along the path here. And some birds from the air came, and they ate the seeds. Some of the seeds fell among the stones here. When the seeds tried to put the little roots down among the stones, they could not push them all the way in. When the sun came out, it scorched the seeds, and they died. Next is this path of thorns. The sower threw some of the seeds among the thorns, but when the seeds tried to push their little roots down among the thorns, they could push them apart way in, but the thorns choked them, and they also died. Then some of the seeds fell onto the good earth. When the seeds pushed their little roots down into the good earth, they could go all the way in. So they grew and they grew. When they were all grown up, they were ripe for the harvest, and they were cut off and gathered up. And the harvest was 30, 60, and even 100 bushels. They had so much that they filled up so many jars of good, prosperous seed that had grown into something even better. So in our story today, there were 4 different types of ground that this sower put the seeds on. First, there was just the path. And do you remember what happened as soon as the seeds landed on the path? the birds came and the birds ate them. So as soon as the birds ate them, nothing was going to grow because the seeds were gone. Next, we had a path that was made up of stone. And do you remember what happened when the seeds landed on the stone? They didn't have anywhere to grow. It was too cramped together with the stones so close beside one another. There was not enough room for the seeds to even bury in and grow roots, and so they died. Then we had the third kind of soil, which was made up of thorns. Do you see those thorns, which are really sharp and pokey? There may be some thorns in your yard or that you've seen before. And so do you remember what happened after the sower threw seeds onto the thorns? They weren't able to grow either because of the sharpness that the thorns created. They couldn't exist together. The seeds didn't have healthy soil to grow into because the thorns took over all that was there. And last we had the good earth. I wonder what you think about when you think of good earth. If you've ever had a garden or grown vegetables in your house before, or plants, what do you think of when you think of good earth? So the sower threw seeds on the good earth, and do you remember what happened? The seeds were able to grow. They had the proper amount of nutrients in the soil that they were able to bury their roots deep and grow into something beautiful, so much so that it grew and grew to an abundance of crops where they filled up a bunch of jars full of things for them to eat and keep them healthy. When I think of this story, I think about all the ways that this story can relate to our lives, not just when it comes to gardening. It's true that it's very important for us to have good and healthy soil anytime we want to plant vegetables or flowers or anything like that. But we could think about this as it relates to other parts of our lives. Let's think about ourselves as the different types of soil. There were 4 different types. There was just a dirt path, a path with stones, a path with thorns, and a path that had the good earth underneath it. So I imagine that we all fit into one of those areas. And I wonder which one you fit into, which one of the soils you would like to be in your life. Maybe we have a bad day and our soil is a lot like the one with stones and nothing much really comes out of it, and we just feel like we just didn't have the best energy that day. Or maybe we're tired or grumpy one day during school and we have the soil that's a lot like the thorns, where nothing is really able to grow because we're too focused on being grumpy and angry, and we can't absorb other people's happiness. Or maybe we're like the good earth, the soil that nourishes, that listens with all of our mind and heart and body to what other people are telling us, who offers kind and considerate words to our friends and to our neighbors. We all have a choice every single day to be one of those 4 types of soil. And I think each day we would all like to choose how to be the good earth, the good soil, the one that bears the most nutritional and healthy fruit and veggies. But how can we do that? I have a book here today that I'm going to read to us that I think can help us to think of other ways that we can be just like the good soil to the people around us, and how we can be good neighbors in a loving and compassionate way. Our book is called Maybe I Can Love My Neighbor Too, written by Jennifer Grant, illustrated by Benjamin Shipper. I live at the corner of 9th and 19th, upstairs in apartment 4A. A building is going up across the street. Week after week, it grows taller and taller, climbing up high in the sky. Mama, will all the new people be our neighbors too? I ask one day. Every single person is our neighbor, she says, whether they live next door or across the street or far, far away. I know I'm supposed to love my neighbors, but how can I love that many people, I ask. Mama gives me a hug. Oh, honey, she says, I'm sure you'll find a way. Maybe start by noticing the ways others show love. A man walks by the construction site, pushing a shopping cart that's stuffed with blankets and bags. The wheels hit a bump in the road and the cart almost tips over. But one of the workers moves fast to catch it and sets it upright again. Helping someone who's just passing by is a way to show love. Maybe I can love my neighbor too. Mama and I walk down to the park, just like we do every day. I see a man and a woman up ahead talking to people while they wait at the light. I stare at the pictures on the man's arms while he tells Mama about people who had to leave their homes because they weren't safe anymore. Mama hands him a few dollars to he and the woman who has purple stripe in her hair. Giving money to people so they have a safe place to live is a way to show love. Maybe I can love my neighbor too. At the park, an old man is shouting his dog's name. Shadow, Shadow, he calls. A boy runs after the dog, diving to catch him. A minute later, Shadow is back with his owner. The old man says thank you over and over and over. Helping older folks is a way to show love. Maybe I can love my neighbor too. Mama, look at me, I shout, and she waves from the bench under her favorite tree. When I'm all out of breath, I sit at the edge of the sandbox, watching the other kids play. A girl tosses me a shovel and a pail. Then we build the most elegant castle and dig a moat around it. We decorate it with royal flags, made of sticks and seeds and leaves. That was kind of that girl, Mama says when we're walking back home. I liked seeing how she loved her neighbor, and that neighbor was you. Sharing toys with a new friend is a way to show love. Maybe I can love my neighbor too. There's sand between my toes, and Mama says it's time for the tub. But then we hear a knock at the door. It's our neighbors from upstairs, and they baked us a loaf of bread. Sharing good things to eat is a way to show love. Maybe I can love my neighbor too. At dinner, I tell Daddy, guess what? I learned something new today. That's what I like to hear, he says. What is it? Any person in the whole wide world is my neighbor, I say, and I can love them too. I could give my birthday money to someone who needs it more than me, I say. Or I could carry groceries or open doors for people who aren't as strong as I am. I pull up my sleeves and show my muscles. There are a lot of ways, I say. I can be kind to other kids in the park, or even bake something to share with people in our building. I knew you'd find ways to show love to others, Mama says with a smile. Every other person in the whole wide world is my neighbor, whether they live next door or across the street or far, far away. And I know I can love my neighbors too. The end. So friends, the question that the disciples asked was, what is the kingdom of heaven like? I think the kingdom of heaven is something that's here on earth, and we have the opportunity to create it. And one of the ways that we can create it is by showing love to others here all around us. Just like the book said, to the people who are our neighbors, whether near or far away. I hope our book inspired you to think of all the ways you can be like the good earth and show love and consideration for others, because what that will do is it will grow beautiful things and will help create the kingdom of earth here among us right now. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you in person soon. Bye.